Hello. Boy, has it ever been a while since we've been here. Now, I'd like to talk to you. Something ain't right. Something ain't right. Oh, well, that's better. I'm going to share with you my top 10 tips for driving the Alaska Highway. These were found out the hard way. Let me tell you that. Timing is everything. I mean, not only in life in general, but also in road trips. Now, the Alaska Highway, the typical, I guess, tourist season is May to about mid-September. And to be honest, I don't think I would want to stretch that outside of those times. We went, it was September, what, the 15th? I don't know what this is all about. September the 15th was when we crossed over into Alaska. So it would have been about the 16th that we started heading south. It was rain, a lot of rain. I think we had maybe 1 or 2 days that there was no rain. Rain at lower elevations means snow at higher elevations. So just keep that in mind. You also have your longer days, not just summer longer days, but Alaska longer days. So, you know, that gives you all that much more time to do stuff. And during the peak season, you're going to have more things are going to be open or at full capacity. Obviously, during the off-season times, you know, hotels are going to be reduced service. Any attractions are likely going to be at reduced service. So if you want to make the most of it, I'm a shoulder season kind of gal, but I wouldn't go much later than like September and like mid-September. If you're booking places to stay, get on that as quick as you can. And make sure you know what the cancellation policies are. Just in case something comes up, you can't make it, whatever. You don't want to be out a boat ton of money. Now, remote has a whole new meaning. I'm used to remote places, but this was next level remote. Like even on the main roads, you sometimes didn't see people for hours, and we barely left the Alaska Highway. Once we got on it, we pretty much stayed on it. And yeah, there was a lot of times that it's like, ooh, if something happens, it's going to be very bad. Expect limited services. You're not going to have a Walmart on every corner. You're not going to have a McD's on every corner. Gas stations may not be open 24 hours. And as I found out the hard way, sometimes they close. And not just for the night. So make sure you factor in your gas mileage and the terrain. Try not to let it get too low, and you know what, fill up when you can. Your food situation is going to be reduced. So if you have a restrictive diet, or if you're like vegetarian, vegan, you can't subsist on cinnamon rolls and diner food, make sure you bring yourself, you take care of yourself. Lots of snacks. It also saves money. Same but different. Your cell service, forget about it. There were a couple days I had absolutely zero cell. If you're relying on apps and maps, download those ahead of time, update them. If there's an offline version, get that while you can. And don't count on hotels or motels having, you know, Wi-Fi that you can plug into, because the odds are it might not be the greatest and very, very slow. Grab yourself the Milepost. It's actually called The Milepost. It's a book. It's a book about this thick. I actually lent it out to a friend of mine because they're planning their own trip. It's about $60, but let me tell you, it is 60 well worth it. Almost every night I was there with that thing on my lap looking at what we're going to do the next day. And when they say mile by mile, they aren't kidding. It is literally mile by mile. They will have attractions, they'll have sites to see, historic markers, everything. Even places that are, you know, known for wildlife crossings, like, hey, be careful of the bison. Like, oh, okay, cool. Who knew they had places booked in advance, but whatever. Money. Bring enough. And don't assume that everyone has debit or credit machines. Actually make sure you have some cash. And remember that the Alaska Highway isn't just in Alaska. Ends in Alaska, ends in BC. As much as we like to think we're one big happy family, dysfunctional maybe, but happy, factor in the exchange rate, whichever way you're going. And everything is more expensive there. Everything. I mean, gas, the highest I saw gas was $2.29 a liter. Yeah, and everything is going to be more expensive. I spent $20 on a cinnamon roll. The cinnamon roll was the size of my head, but still, it was $20 on a cinnamon roll. You can't have a road trip without roads. And the Alaska Highway horrendous in parts. It is paved. It is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week, 365-year highway, but there were some parts that is just next level bad. And this is coming from a country kid who grew up on dirt roads. There were some parts, I can't even think of how to describe it. It's like, it's not just a pothole. You're like, oh, okay, cool. It's like pothole underneath a crust. So you go, oh, that's not that bad. And then bam! And of course, the people in the overcompensation trucks riding my bumper the entire time. There were a couple times I'm watching the trailer just boom, 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 boom. Just give yourself time, take breaks. Just be prepared for that. Now, I think they fix it up like in sections as years go by, because there was just one section that was bad this year and there was a lot of construction around it. I can't say like between mile 25 and 30 it's bad. I think it moves. Share the love. So having said that, have a plan in mind for what happens if you get a flat, if you hit that. What happens if you put out your alignment? Because I could totally see that happening. What if it happens in a place where there's no signal? Are you able to be self-sufficient for a while? If you have to get at your flat, do you have to unpack your whole car? If you have a trailer, can you get at the spare? On the plus side, even if there is a big gap in traffic, there is usually traffic. It is still a major highway. Hopefully if you are incapacitated in your vehicle, vehicularly incapacitated, you'll have signal. If not, first of all, have a plan to get off the road and then, get ready to do the frantic arm wave. Likely going to be a truck cut that goes by and they have the CBs and stuff like that. I assume those things still work, but I imagine that if you spend any amount of time on that highway, you've seen breakdowns. So it's just like another Tuesday to them. One way to put the odds in your favor, get your vehicle looked at before you leave. Even if you're like a really handy person, you're really good at doing that, maybe have someone else, just a fresh set of eyes, get it in the best shape that you can, splurge on whatever might need doing, because the last thing you want is to have a breakdown on the side of the highway. The weather can be pretty variable. Plan for the rain, because there's a lot of it, and once you get cold and you get wet, it's just like, ugh, it's just gross. If you have traveling companions like I do, how are they in the rain? Mine love to swim, hate the rain. It could be raining, even just a light spit, and they're like, ugh, no, I don't want to go out in this. But they'll jump in gross puddles and glacier lakes and stuff like that, no problem. If your dog needs a rain jacket or anything, or make sure you have a towel for little feeties, all that sort of fun stuff. There are significant temperature drops. So there were some days I was walking around in a t-shirt and then at night it would drop down below freezing. Be prepared for that. Wildlife is part of the best part of going. Driving along the side of the highway, like, oh, there's some bison. Oh, there's some caribou. I think I saw a bear. I saw a black bear. A couple black bears. And while that's great, they are the ultimate road hogs. Keep your eyes open and be prepared to, drive defensively or just wait. And I would not recommend honking the horn at them, especially if they have young with them. They might get a little defensive and, I don't want to explain to my insurance company how my car got gored. You especially want to be careful at night. Dark animals, dark roads, not a good combination. Little side story. I went to Wood Buffalo National Park. It's in Alberta and Northwest Territories, and I had to drive through to get to, I can't remember what the town was where I was staying, but I got an Airbnb, and I never got the address for the Airbnb. It never came through. So I'm like, son of a gun. So I go to the RCMP detachment. I'm like, do you guys know who this person is and where this Airbnb is? Because I'm like sending the messages and they're not getting through to me. And they kind of look at each other like, how did you get here? I drove, took the road. It's like 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And they just kind of look at each other and they're doing the old, you shouldn't have done that because bison walk on the road and you won't see them until it's too late. Fair enough. And that's another reason I don't like driving at night. A, because what's the point of driving literally across the country if I can't see what I'm there to see? But also, I don't want to hit anything. So if you do see wildlife, obviously give them lots of space. Don't feed them, please. That's not good for them. Keep a clean camp or a clean picnic site if you're just stopping for a bite to eat, and keep your dogs under control on leash ideally. I know we all think that our dogs are perfect until they're not. On the Alaska Highway, I'm used to, here's an imaginary line. You're going east, you go whatever way you're going, it's all at the same place. No, not on this place. Because the Alaska Highway goes through such remote areas, they put the border crossings on either side of the border, not on the border, but either side nearest the closest town. On the Alaska side, it's like here, and then you're driving like another 20, 30 minutes before you get into Canada. That was a little surprising. They're still not really in town. They're close to town, but not it was weird for me, especially when I had just driven the top of the world highway and the border crossing both ways is literally in the middle of nowhere. Middle of nowhere. They live there. That's pretty cool. There is a different dog culture. Dogs in the southern parts or in urban areas are more commoditized. They're commodities. They're an accessory. Oh, I got a husky because I saw Game of Thrones, or I like beagles because they're pretty. Up north you tend to get more, I have a hunting dog, Buddy has a hunting dog. We'll get them together and make more hunting dogs. So you're more likely to see dogs off leash, and they tend to be very well behaved, but it's not like here where everyone's on a leash. Odds are there will be, you will see dogs off leash. As I learned, unfortunately, the ones that I dealt with were not friendly. They attacked my car. There's nothing quite like watching dogs to get at your bulldog. Just be forewarned. It's not to say they're bad dogs. I met some wonderful dogs. This is just, it's just a different dog culture there as opposed to in a lot of other places. Unless you have a dog that's used to the wilderness, there's going to be a lot of really fun smells. So be very, very honest with yourself about whether you're going to let your dog off leash. If their recall is usually pretty good, I'm going to suggest that's not good enough to be off leash. Your dog might come back eventually, they might not. Only you can make that decision. And if you're coming from warmer areas, consider packing, a coat for your dog, maybe booties if they're not used to, rocky, rough ground and things like that. Make it comfortable for them. If you're planning on doing a lot of swimming, bring a life jacket for them if they're not very good swimmers. I don't have to worry about that with Meathead because he's like a hippo. He just walks on the bottom. Give yourself enough time. Like, there's no point in driving across the country to have to rush through it in 2 days. Give yourself a good buffer. I would say no less than 4 or 5 days. Can you do it in 2? Yes, but why would you want to? And if you're a history buff, there's so much history there. Definitely take advantage of that. Get into a visitor center, ask some questions. Visitor centers are great because they're gonna tell you the stuff that you're not gonna see in the milepost. You may not find it online because maybe other people don't really think about it. They might tell you a good place to, walk your dogs. And they're super helpful and lovely people. I've never had a bad time visiting a visitor center that I can recall, or even just a really good place to sit and have a picnic. My Bluetti solar panel and portable battery pack, game change. Like, I was able to set up and I try to keep up to date on all the computer type stuff. I'm horrible at it, but it was nice when we had a day or two to just kind of chill and get everything up and have a nice cold drink and things like that. Awesome. My Kuma Bear Buddy chair, which is basically like a folding love seat. That's Lily's favorite piece of gear because she usually is the first one in it. I don't even have it completely undone, and she claims her seat. Her little highness. My packable down blankets, so nice, especially when the temperatures drop. Because I have the heavy breathers, a lot of condensation builds up. I don't want to leave the vents wide open because it gets cold. So having the warm blankies means I can get a little bit more air circulation than I normally would and not freeze. Bonus. I would visit a little earlier in the season. Like I said, we were like towards the downside of mid-September, so it was a lot of snow. I understand the bugs were not quite as bad, but I would have dealt with a few more bugs if it meant that I wasn't, getting rained on all the time. And because it's raining all the time, we're not really able to hike as much. I would visit the layered hot springs. I actually drove by it twice, once on the way up and then once on the way back. And I was really tempted to stop, but I didn't because I knew that with the dogs in the car, I wouldn't be able to relax. And it's not that it was too hot for them. It was quite comfortable for them to be in the car. It would literally just be me like shedding clothing as I'm running to the hot springs, jump in and go, okay, I'm here. I gotta go back to my dogs. It's not fair to them to leave them in the car for a long time by themselves. So if I had someone else with me, or if I didn't have them, I would definitely do the hot springs. Or if I had something a little bit more comfortable for them to stay in, like an RV or a van or something, I would do that. I would have brought a sign for the signpost forest. I knew it was there, but I totally forgot it was there, and I didn't bring a sign, and I kicked myself the whole time, so I would have definitely brought a sign. And I would have taken more time for the historic sites and to explore the towns and the cities a little bit more. It is a little harder with the Teardrop. It's kind of hard to find a parking space for it that's kind of central where I don't have to leave the dogs. It's in Whitehorse. And I stopped at Yukon Brewing And I ran in like some kind of crazed wild person because I was kind of double parked and the dogs were in the car and I was taking up parking spaces and I got on top of a boatload of beer. I also got this lovely little single malt whiskey. I have to figure out when I'm gonna crack into it. I didn't even sample anything. I just ran in there and said, what do you have that's good? And they're like, I have this. I'm like, give me all of it. I'm so glad it's not illegal to transport beer across provincial borders anymore. It was, and now it's not. And that's all I shall say on the matter. There's my top 10 tips on driving the Alaska Highway. Let me know what you think. Any you agree with, you disagree with, and what did I forget? Because inevitably I forget something. Share with your friends, family, travel companions. Thank you for hanging out with us. I really appreciate it. I know I say it with almost every video, especially when I'm sitting here, because when I'm out in the wilderness, I just, my brain's just busy thinking about not getting eaten by a bear. If you have any other questions, comments, concerns, let me know below. We are going to do a kind of like a wrap up on the whole trip, what I learned about living in my teardrop for a month, so stay tuned for that. Top of the World Highway. I have an opinion that might be controversial on that one. Stay tuned. We'll see you out there. Safe travels. Am I going to do it? I'm going to do it.